Welcome to Face to Face, connecting theater makers to the public, a program from the Legacy Theater and socialdistancetheater.org.
Hello, I'm Colin Sheehan, and today's guest is a dear friend of mine. I've known him since he was a child, performing with the Lemonade Gang in Branford, Connecticut. He is now a Tony and Olivier Award-winning producer, and I couldn't be prouder of all that he has accomplished. Please welcome Greg Nobile.
Hi, Colin.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I'm good. What's going on? How's your quarantine going?
Oh, you know, every day's the same.
Mm-hmm.
The days
Yes.
are getting longer and longer.
But it's
I
getting
know
lighter. It's getting lighter and lighter, so it's so nice.
it is. It is. I know you started your quarantine in New York City, and then I think eventually made your way back to Branford. How have the last 2.5 months been for you?
They've been okay. Yeah, started in New York, left pretty much after the Broadway shutdown, which was March 12th. And I feel, as always, very blessed to have Branford as a home base, and was able to, sneak out and get back to Branford, which has been really amazing. And I think, like so many, spent the first couple of weeks like in a pure panic meltdown, and seemingly not able to get through what was going to have to be another week of quarantine. And now I think we've all settled into a routine of just this is sort of the new normal, at least for a little while, and have actually found a lot of like solace in being here, and not running around all the time, and sort of being much more still than I have been. So fortunately everyone in my world is healthy, and keeping roofs over their heads, so I feel very happy and lucky.
And luckily, we live in a very gorgeous place.
The most gorgeous. It's like, I feel like at a resort all the time. Well, my apartment's at the Onigo, so I'm literally at a resort all the time.
Onigo, for those that you don't know, it's a beach and tennis club. It's gorgeous. Greg and I have hosted and produced many events there, and it's beloved by the community. So I know we've worked together for a lot. When Seaview Productions started, we produced shows like A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, Sideshow, Gypsy and Showboat in the West End, and the incredibly immersive Sweeney Todd.
Yes.
And you were lucky enough to donate the props. We were supposed to do Sweeney Todd in March for Branford High School. So thank you for that. We had a lot of fun working together, right?
Oh my God, we had the best time. Well, of course, I had been a Colin Sheehan admirer when I was growing up in Branford, and so to have an opportunity to work with the Colin Sheehan, as Seaview was getting started, my partner and I, Jenna Shea, who's the, I think, vice president of the board of Legacy Theater, it's her official title, started Seaview Productions, and Colin, was instrumental in starting the business and getting us started. And I think we had a good old time launching our little startup production company.
We did. And then I started getting some directing gigs and just wanted to do that.
You left us behind, left us in the dust.
Well, you guys were so great, and like, you do what you're passionate about. And since then you've produced a bunch. Seawall, A Life, and Slave Play to rave reviews. What are you working on now?
Yeah, we're keeping pretty busy. We've got about 4 shows in the pipeline between now and sort of the end of the 2022 season on Broadway. We have one big musical called Lempicka, which is based on the life of the Polish painter Tamara de Lempicka, directed by Tony Award winner Rachel Chavkin, which we were supposed to be starting previews at the La Jolla Playhouse in San Diego literally yesterday. But that's getting rescheduled to the fall of 2021, and then we'll be on Broadway in the spring of 2022.
I love Lempicka. The music
beautiful.
is amazing. Matt Gould.
Matt Gould, the composer, we've worked with a couple times, and actually has been in Branford for a benefit for Legacy Theater twice, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so we're really excited about that production. We have an amazing play directed by 4-time Tony Award winner Susan Stroman. It's her debut on Broadway directing a play, which is super exciting, by a young 26-year-old playwright named Selena Fillinger, who not a lot of people know yet, but everybody will soon. She's an extraordinary writer who wrote this amazing farce about the White House that hopefully will be one of the first things that Broadway can reopen with when Broadway's able to come back.
Yeah. I feel like you and I have had very similar lives. We both obviously love Branford, and I teased in your intro that I remember watching you and your friends perform in the Lemonade Gang in summer cabarets, and you
Yeah.
were raising money for a worthy cause. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you wanted to do it and your childhood, and then ultimately what made you decide that you wanted to be in the business of show?
Yeah, yeah. Well, like so many of our peers growing up had like just the deeply fortunate opportunity to be born and raised here in Brantford, which is such an extraordinary community in every single way. Um, and at a very young age, at around 5 and 6, my childhood best friend, still best friend, and turned roommate into New York, Ryan Bloomquist, and I had a dear friend who was diagnosed with this rare disease called adrenoleukodystrophy. And, at that age, we didn't understand sort of what was happening to our friend. And, we didn't understand how we could be helpful. But one thing we started doing was selling lemonade in the neighborhood. And, we used those, we took the money that we raised from our lemonade stand and donated it to the Mylan Project, which was the research foundation doing, tremendous, research and good work around this disease that our friend was affected by. And we kept doing this with neighborhood friends, over the coming summers in the front yard and wherever. But both Ryan and I had this common passion for singing and dancing. And, we sort of had this idea when we were pretty young, to start doing shows in the backyard and charging our moms and our aunts to come and, watch us do productions of Anything Goes with thumbtacks in our, shoes as taps. And, people started coming, family and neighbors, and, these were silly backyard productions. But, as Ryan and I got older and our passion for music and theater deepened, and we saw that we could actually raise money, a couple dollars, but raise money to support our friend or do our part. We were really inspired by that. So thus began our little group, the Lemonade Gang, which grew summer over summer. We put little shows on, and those shows matured as we grew, and by the time we were in high school, we'd raised about $100,000 over the course of many years, and had put on big shows down at the Onigo that were big cabarets of Broadway shows. And for me, it was such a learning moment in so many ways. One was that there was this sort of job that existed, which was to manage the art. And there was the art side, the singing and dancing, which Ryan, is now a professional singer and dancer, was always way better at than I was. But I got really interested in the business of, what it meant to, bring people together and to put on a show, and started to realize that that was actually a career path that I could have. And the fact that gathering people and putting and telling stories together like this could actually be for the greater good. For us, it was in service of our dear friend and of this research foundation. And now as we talk about taking on new work on Broadway and beyond, it is so rooted in how can telling this story and how can gathering these people and how can having the economic power of what these big Broadway shows are be for the benefit of good is so deeply ingratiated into Seaview's mission and into the work that we choose to make.
Yeah, I love you mentioned Ryan Bloomquist a lot. I love his voice is spectacular. And you guys were in the same grade in high school. And I was fortunate enough to see you in all your musical performances at Brantford High School, including King in Pirates of Penzance and Raoul in Phantom of the Opera. Can you let our viewers know what your high school experience was like?
I thought you were going to ask me if I could sing some of the Pirate King, which I was all ready to do, but
Well, you could do that too, but I'm really curious about how you had to take like 4 gym classes your senior year.
wow, that's a low blow. That's a
Sorry.
low blow. Yeah, well, Colin, what happens is when you're taking so many music classes, sometimes you forget to go to gym, and then you think that everyone's going to forget. And senior year, they remind you you still have 3 gym credits to do, lest you can't graduate. So
That's my worst nightmare, by the way.
Oh yeah, no, it was terrible. I spent most of my senior year just walking the track, trying to get my gym credits. And I mean, Brantford High School was an extraordinary experience, as was, every, public school experience here in Brantford. Especially given, the extraordinary leadership of Tony Cardizano and Kathy Ann Roding, who shepherded the music theater program so brilliantly and literally is the only reason I graduated high school at all. I was never a good student. And, you know, the only reason I literally got through school was I had to maintain like a C average or whatever to like, you know, stay in the program. And I remember having conversations with my math teacher and with my gym teacher and with my science teacher where Kathy Ann had to be present, where they were like, Greg, you cannot do the musical if you cannot get your grades up in this class. And, you know, it gave me, like so many theater kids, you know, so much hope, you know, and so much courage and so much inspiration to stay motivated in the schoolwork that I had to get done, you know, to be part of that program, and just feel so lucky to have been one of many people that have come out of the Brantford program and had a career in the arts, because I think, you know, and that is, you know, very, very much tied to, you know, the extraordinary leadership of our, you know, teachers who encouraged us to pursue our passion.
Yeah, and you mentioned the leadership and the amazing Tony Cardizano and Cassie Ann Roding, and you and I co-hosted the last big event in Brantford before everything shut down, Hometown Harmonies, which was a benefit for the Cassie Ann Roding Scholarship Fund, which is housed through the Brantford Community Foundation. The Hometown Harmonies was performed in the Cassie Ann Roding Auditorium, and the Hometown Hero Award went to Tony Cardizano. It's just crazy. They are incredible women. And what do you think is in the water in Brantford that has pumped out so many talented people, but who also want to come back to the community to help out and lend a hand and perform and volunteer just to raise money for great causes?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so funny. It's, you know, I run around New York talking about Brantford all the time, and I'm sure you've had these experiences too, where people are like, what is this like podunk town you're from that you always put most people have left behind when they get to New York? And I'm like, Brantford, it's so amazing, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, inevitably a summer will come around and friends will come out and stay with me, or we'll go and do something, or we'll take them to the Brantford Fest or the High School Musical or whatever is going on. And like, I get it now. This place is an absolute dream, which it is. And I think what's in the water is like kindness here and community. And like, there is such an encouraging, the fact that Ryan and I were able to, you know, do backyard shows where our neighbors would come and make $5 donations to support the thing that we were doing and cheerlead us, although I'm sure those shows were god awful. You know, it's such a testament to like the spirit of the community here, and the raising up of, you know, of each other that we do, and the support financially and sort of physically, emotionally that the town gives to the arts programs and to culture. You know, now we're under the, you know, extraordinary stewardship of Jamie Cosgrove in Town Hall, who believes in this so much and understands the importance of community and culture and how we activate our center of town. Like it's all sort of deeply rooted in how we value community and culture, which is, I think, is so much of, you know, why so many people get inspired to be in the programs. And now, you know, you're in such a major leadership role in the entire art scene here, including at the high school, but so far beyond that. And, you know, it's because we have extraordinary inspired leaders who can motivate and encourage the next generation of artists to sort of dream big. We produce a lot of dreamers, and inevitably some of those dreamers are going to go on to choose to have careers, you know, in the space, which is amazing.
Yeah, you are very much living in New York. Well, not right now. New York is your home base, but you always come back to Brantford. And you mentioned summers in Brantford are amazing, but you've been big in the, like, you're not just a Broadway producer. You don't just do benefits. You opened up a barbecue restaurant, The Stand. You opened up the Freaky Tiki, which was or is a piano bar, and just a great environment. Like, what made you want to do that for Brantford too?
Yeah, again, it's just so much about, you know, the experience that I had was so positive here and growing up. And it sort of feels like sometimes childhoods in hometowns are like on borrowed time, right? Where we're not meant during those ages to like leave indelible marks on our town, right? We sort of pass through and use them. And we use the services, and like we're not paying taxes because we're kids, and like you know, you sort of use the public school system, and you go to the after school programs, and you use the parks, and then we move on, and we like go to other places. You go to LA, or you go to Seattle or New York, or wherever you sort of go on to have your career, maybe build your family there. And some of us stay, right, and build families here, and some go on. And as I went on and my life primarily became in New York, it felt like a responsibility of mine to give back in a meaningful way to the community. And the ways in which that I felt I could do that was take inspiration that I had gleaned from other parts of the country and the world that I had the privilege to travel and work in, and take spaces that were, I thought could sort of use some of the inspiration that I was carrying with me from other spaces and concepts, and infuse them into the cultural scene here. So when we chose to take the beloved Indian Neck garage in Indian Neck and turn it into a space that was so focused on community, and that community would gather over food and over farming and over music, the idea of sort of taking something and making sure that it was preserved. The Indian Neck garage was so much more than a garage. It was owned by the Beatties for generations, and was a place where people actually gathered and would pick up a newspaper and a coffee and sit there and shoot the news with each other all day long. And it was a space where people could gather and be taken care of by their community. And it was really important to me personally to see as that, space was sort of changing hands and changing ownership, that it maintained a place and a sense of community. And that, the places that I found growing up, it was a place where we went to the Indian Neck Garage to get corn and tomatoes, and was like a really sort of special place in my mind, would stay maintained as that. And so we've gotten involved in some projects here that are focused on community-oriented hospitality, which Between the Stand, which is now under new ownership in the same name, and they're doing an excellent job with it. And our little Freaky Tiki just down the road is all about how we bring people together, and hopefully how we offer experiences that feel different and other, but inspired. And I'd love to keep doing more of them as time and everything allows. We have so much fun putting them together, and it's just like the best excuse to come back to town. Because once you plant something, you got to water it.
Yeah, and speaking of that, and hearing you speak about the Indian Neck Garage and coming back, I really have you to thank for coming back to Brantford. I mean, I spent 14 years in New York City, and I would always come back and do benefits every year and would love it and stay for some time in the summer, but never thought I'd leave New York City. And then when you bought the Stand and Seaview Productions relocated to Brantford, and we were working out of a garage that was under renovation, the first 6 months I hated it. The gay scene wasn't here, the theater scene wasn't really here. And as I continued to work for you in Seaview Productions, my, the brain goes, and I'm like, how can I create the theater scene that I yearned for as a child? So Thank you, because I didn't really put two and two together until you were talking about the Indian Neck Garage.
No, that's awesome. But it's been amazing to sort of watch you in such a short time just grow, your vision for when you left the company. There wasn't these opportunities that because you've manifested all of them. And it's been amazing to sort of watch you do the New York thing and do it with such great success, and then likewise bring it back here and grow and manifest, such big things for the town and the art scene. It's awesome.
Well, thank you for inspiring and for always supporting. But enough of the love fest. Let's go to college. Tell me about your college experience. What was that like?
Well, interestingly, I had a run-in with the Stony Creek Puppet House before my sort of subsequent involvement in supporting Keely and Steph's vision for the Legacy Theater. And I had gotten involved with Jimmy Weil, who was alive at the time, who was the former owner of the Stony Creek Puppet House, in trying to bring the theater back while Jimmy was still alive. And my dream that I had to convince my grandfather and mom that I was going to do was I was not going to go to college, because I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was a horrible student. And I had this big plan that I was going to bring the Stony Creek Puppet House back, and that was going to be my job forever, was to run this theater in Brantford and figure out a way to bring it back. And Jimmy, who is this, sort of extraordinary, eccentric man and artist, but, was sort of at the stage of his life where he was, pretty curmudgeonly. And, there was a big dream that, he and I, the old guy and the 19-year-old, I think it was 19 or 18 at the time, we're going to sort of go into the sunset together with this amazing big vision. And, I was so optimistic about it. And so my plan was not to go to college, and was to sort of run the Puppet House. And we ran into all sorts of problems trying to get it going in the first instance. And so then all of a sudden that dream sort of was falling apart, and all of my friends were going off to school, and I hadn't had a plan to go to school. So I panicked and applied for schools, and I got into none of the schools that I applied for. I didn't even get into Southern Connecticut State University, which I didn't know was possible, but is. So if you didn't get in, that's okay. And so I didn't even get into the state school, and I got into this one school called Marymount Manhattan College.
I got in there.
Did
I
they?
got in there.
Did they? Was your acceptance letter like a mosh pit, like a flash mob dance video? That's how
No,
I got
Greg,
that.
I'm a little bit older than you. But if I did go, I would have been in the class with graduating with Annalie Ashford.
Oh, yeah, I forgot she went there.
Yeah, the reason why I chose Wagner over Marymount was because theater was only a minor.
Yeah.
It wasn't a major. So how long did you last at Marymount Manhattan?
Under 10 weeks. I think it was 8 or 9 weeks. I went, it was really just a gateway to get to New York. What became very apparent was I needed to be on an expressway to New York at that point, and school got me there. But then, I worked a retail job. I sold men's suits in the Bloomingdale's in Soho. And I started doing all sorts of apprenticeships and internships and going to a program called the Commercial Theater Institute, which is sort of like the one program that actually teaches the nuts and bolts of theater producing, which is extraordinary. For anyone interested in theater producing, that should be your absolute first stop. I wasn't going to class, and unsurprisingly, and I wasn't, but I was building community with my 28 roommates and, all the friends that I developed through the theater program there. But it was very clear that, I was paying my own way through, and I had taken out a loan that should be illegal, that was so expensive. And I had friends who were much older than me, who were struggling to pay their student loans that were $1,000 or thousands of dollars a month. And I knew that my interest was, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a commercial theater producer, but I knew that the work that I wanted to make was hard and challenging in downtown and not overtly commercial work. And so the idea of being able to make that work and also pay back $1,000 a month for student loans when I wasn't even, meaningfully engaging in the academic work didn't add up for me. And so once again, I'm sure to my mother's great dismay, I told her that I was leaving the school, which I had, gotten into. And it was sort of the best decision that I had made, but a weird one. Right?
Yeah, believe me, I hear you about the student loans. I've been out of school for 13 years and there's no light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
and
it's so hard.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But then I remember getting a call from you. I was living either in Spanish Harlem or Astoria, I can't remember. And you were like, do you think I should go to LA? I think I want to go to LA. But you had no real reason. There was no plan. And I'm such a planner that how long did you last in LA? Why did you want to go there? And then ultimately, what brought you back to New York City?
I was watching the show Entourage from a couple years ago about the agents, the power agents in LA, and it was all glitzy and glamorous, and their role is sort of the same as a producer, which is you sit at the confluence of art and commerce. And represent sort of filmmakers and directors, and that's amazing. That's what I want to do, amazing in a TV show. And the one teacher that I really connected with was this extraordinary woman, professor at Marymount named Deanna Twain, and her husband, Norm Twain, who passed away last year. And I got pretty close, and he was like an old time film producer. You walk into his office and he'd have a secretary and piles of manuscripts and plays next to him, that kind of vibe. And I went in there and I said, I want to be a talent agent. Do you have any advice? And he said, all you need to do is you got to get yourself to LA. You need a black suit and a car. And he gave me a book called The Mailroom, which, back in sort of the old days, all you had to do was show up at a talent agency and literally you'd start in the mailroom and you'd work your way up. Now, most of those people, the mailroom program still exists in the agency world. It's literally full of Harvard MBA kids who are working their way up and are trained to be an agent. I didn't get that memo. So I, after a little bit of time in New York after college, I took my book and I went to Connecticut and I cashed all my savings bonds again, and to my mother's, I'm certain, great dismay. I went to the TD Bank, and of course I'm not a planner, and so I was like, I'm getting on a train tomorrow. I got to cash the savings bonds today. My mother's Vera Bradley duffel bag. I filled it with clothes. I cashed my savings bonds. I took my mailroom book, and I went to LA in pursuit of this sort of talent agent life, Hollywood thing, film, TV. Felt all very glamorous. Nothing was glamorous about it. he was right about that. It was my first time in LA. I landed in LAX with a Vera Bradley bag and a couple bucks, and I Airbnb'd for a couple months. And I went around and I tried to take meetings. I didn't have a car, so I had to take the public transit in LA, which is a total disaster. It's like impossible to get around. So I would be able to take at least 2 meetings a day. That was sort of the most. I remember sitting in this Airstream trailer in the backyard of somebody's house in somewhere in LA or West Hollywood, and there was no bathroom. And so I'd have to go down to the 7-Eleven and I'd have to buy like a candy bar to use the bathroom every night, and I'd brush my teeth. It was a total mess. And I ended up actually through a family connection. I met somebody in Burbank, California, who worked in the film TV space. And I ended up getting to know him and his roommates. And they let me crash on their couch for a couple months as I tried to find work in LA and meet with people, and actually had this amazing sort of growth experience. I met a therapist called Athena out there who like really helped me sort of center myself and my life, and realized that LA and this thing that I was chasing, this glitzy glam film TV agent life, was actually not what I wanted, and theater making in New York and being close to home and being on the East Coast was what I wanted. And my experiences in LA are much different now, thank goodness. I like LA a lot better than I did when I was there. But it was I missed New York and I missed the theater scene, and it's just not like what it is here.
Yeah, and again, talking about the Branford love, we're so lucky to be a 2-hour train ride from Manhattan. It's great. Now, why do you think, because Face to Face is all a part of Legacy Theater, why do you think it is important for not only Branford and the Legacy Theater to open, but small theaters to be in rural communities?
Yeah, it's so important. I'm so excited. I'm like deeply excited. I saw Keely a couple months ago, actually, at the benefit that you put together for Tony, and I used these VR goggles to be inside of the Legacy Theater, and I was just so emotional by it. It's been, as I mentioned, it's been a project that's been near and dear to my heart for over a decade now. And revitalizing this building in particular, just to start on the really micro, there is so much history inside of the theater that harkens back to the silent movie theater days and to the Parachute Factory and the Girdle Factory and the space where Lee Schubert was premiering Broadway plays. And it harkens back to a time when people were coming in from New Haven by trolley, and they were coming in from New York by steamship, and the Thimble Islands were alive with parties, and there was bars littered throughout Stony Creek. It harkens to a time that is just so deeply romantic and important to culture through that resonates today through modern America, and it's a space so much history. So the fact that it's getting preserved at the theater is, I just think, one of the most important things for not only our very small and particular community, but for the larger cultural and arts community. But having spaces like this that have leadership like the Legacy Theater does artistically and managerially is just so important to the lifeblood of the larger American theater. The shows that happen on Broadway, 9 out of 10 of them are developed in smaller spaces somewhere else across the country. We have institutional from San Diego to Seattle to Williams, Massachusetts to right in New York, but theaters that have under 100 seats that begin the very important process of developing new work for the American stage. In particular, New Haven County has what is certainly, the foremost birthplace of the American musical, where Rodgers and Hammerstein would take the train out and stay at the Taft Hotel and write Oklahoma and South Pacific, and where my grandfather, an IBM salesman in New Haven selling typewriters door to door, would save his pennies literally and take my grandmother to sit in the last row of the Schubert in New Haven and see these world premieres starring absolute Broadway legends happening right here in New Haven County. So the idea that a pillar of Legacy's work includes the development of new work, as well as the reimagining of classics, is just so important to have access to that in our backyard, and in Stony Creek, a neighborhood that is just like so romantic and so lovely and so beautiful in all the ways. And the fact that you can go down and get a pizza at Indian Neck Pizza and sit there and have a glass of wine and then walk up to the theater, and it is just, there's nothing more exciting to me about the birth of this theater and the fact that it feels so imminent. after so many years and so much conversation about what it would look like for this theater to reopen. The fact that it's going to reopen in just a couple months, is certainly, one of the brightest spots of sitting through this pandemic time and seeing that work continue as I drive by at least once a week to see the status, to see that is continuing on despite all the wrong in the world, is just so deeply exciting and is so important to the makeup of the art scene.
Wow, your energy and enthusiasm and knowledge and support of everything is just incredible. So thank you so much for just being you and for chatting with us today, Greg.
So fun. Thanks for having me. I always love talking to you. You're the best interviewer in town.
Oh, thank you. My dream was to have a talk show of my own, so this is fulfilling that.
Well, good. I'm sure this could be your audition tape for as once the networks start taking more talk shows.
If only I knew a producer.
I know. I'll try to find you one.
I can't wait to see you soon and hopefully go on a social distant walk together, and we will see you on the next episode of Face to Face. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for joining us on Face to Face. We would like to thank our sponsors, Oak Tree Development and the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, and Brad Ross for the themed music. You can follow us on legacytheaterct.org.